Hey everyone, I'm Cary Smith and I'm sitting here with Cheri Turner.
Hi, everyone.
And Cheri and I are both with Client First Capital. And Cheri, we have a great topic for today. Now, I know in your practice, you meet with a lot of different people. Many of them are couples, some are single men, but you've always had a passion for helping women be successfully financially. And
Absolutely.
so today we're talking about why is estate planning especially important for women? And so I like this topic. I think there's a lot of good things here to talk about.
Right.
Um, and some of them people may already know and realize, but I think we may have, a couple of new ideas to the table here as well.
Mhm.
And so let's start talking about why estate planning is so important for women.
Right. Absolutely. So, there are a number of reasons why estate planning is especially important for women. Obviously, it's important for everyone, but especially for women. And the first reason is they have a longer life expectancy. Nowadays, women are living 5 to 7 years longer than their male counterparts. So, given that, we want to ensure that the assets are in place to ensure that there are enough funds to cover all the way through the end of life. And so understanding that that's a longer period of time to plan for most women.
So that's a really good point, Cherie. So women are going to live 5 to 7 years longer than men, right? And I think that's common knowledge. But often the woman is 5 to 7 years younger than her husband,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so if they're 5 to 7 years younger and they're going to live 5 to 7 years longer,
Hmm.
that's 10 to 14 years,
Right.
right? And that's just using averages, right? I
Mhm.
mean, it could be, you could be without, you could be the surviving spouse for, if you're a woman, for 15, 20 years, right?
Right.
Which is a significant amount of time.
Right.
So, yes, I
Absolutely.
think that's a really good point.
Yeah. Yeah. The second reason is that as women, we tend to be and have the caregiving responsibilities.
Mm.
That can be, you know, your own parents, your aging parents, your children. Sometimes we're still supporting and helping to support our adult children. And also sometimes grandchildren, right? Sometimes in retirement, we help out our kids by providing support with the grandchildren. But given those giving responsibilities, it's important that you have a plan in place that protects you too, that really protects you and your ability to provide that caregiving, and then that you have the opportunity for sufficient care yourself as you are aging. Oftentimes, due to the fact that the male spouse, the husband, tends to pass first, the wife tends to provide a lot of the end of life care for the husband to the extent that they're able. However,
Mhm.
with the husband typically passing first, the wife doesn't have that benefit. So they need to ensure that the assets are there to provide and cover that.
Yeah. And so if you don't have that person there to provide that care, which I will say, even if you do or don't, that is not the best strategy for long-term care, first of
Right.
all, right?
Hmm.
There are better ways to plan for that.
Absolutely.
But to your point, if your husband has predeceased you, no one's there to provide that care for you. The last thing people want to do is be a burden on their children, right? And so
Right.
you need to have some planning in place to make sure you can cover these expenses.
Right.
And through that planning, you'll either set some assets aside or have some long-term care insurance or various other strategies, but it will be something that you've created a plan for,
Hmm.
and so how you're going to handle it if that event occurs.
Right. Absolutely. So again, it's extremely important for women due to their longer life expectancy, their caregiving responsibilities, and that risk that they're more likely to outlive the savings due to both the longer life expectancy and then being older than their
Mhm.
spouse. Right.
Okay.
So, in considering our plan, there are a number of essential documents in an estate plan that we want to be sure are in place. So, everyone wants to ensure that you have a will. Now, a will helps to ensure that your assets are distributed to where you want them to go, and essentially, it also ensures that you're able to name a guardian in the event of any minor children, and it prevents the state from being able to decide themselves how your assets are going to be distributed. In the absence of a will, all of your assets go into probate, and then the state decides who and where your assets will be distributed to.
So, boy, nothing can get siblings fighting like the lack of a will or clear instructions what's to happen to their parents' assets when they pass away, right?
Right.
And no parent really wants that. You
That's
want there to be some harmony, and a will is really one of the best ways just to make sure that your wishes are done, and that other people know what your wishes are, right? And so that they can harmoniously help make that happen. And so, but yes, it's a good idea to have those documents in place.
right. Absolutely. And in addition to a will, in most instances, you would also want to have a trust. Now, a trust helps to avoid probate completely. So,
Mhm.
where the assets established in a will might tend to go through probate, those that are housed within a trust do not have to go through probate. This means that you have full control over where and how your assets are distributed, in addition to full privacy. When assets go through probate, that's a matter of public record. So by having your assets distributed through a trust, it keeps it private and very defined. It also allows you to have better control over how exactly those assets are distributed. So it doesn't mean that everything's going to be automatically and equally and immediately divided up. You have some controls over, say you have, children who you would rather see those funds go to over a period of time rather than all at once. You have the flexibility and control to allow you to do some of those more complicated planning controls.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of having a trust in place, and my wife and I did this several years ago.
Mhm.
And the process of establishing that trust forces you to think about things that you may not have thought about
Right.
otherwise, and it helps you be very purposeful in what's going to happen as you age and potentially pass. And so that the process alone is worth it, because
Yes.
it really does make you think and be very purposeful about what you leave behind.
Yes, absolutely. Another advantage of that is in the case of irrevocable trusts, it actually also protects those assets from
Mhm.
creditors or lawsuits.
Yeah,
So it can provide a little added protection for the
yeah,
long-term distribution of those
yeah.
of
A
those
lot of financial benefits as well.
Yes,
Right.
definitely. Yeah. And now the third type of document that you want to ensure you have in place are powers of attorney. And there's two different types of these. The first is a financial power of attorney. And this means that in the event that you're not able or incapable of making your own financial decisions, you get to designate who will make those decisions for you. In the absence of a financial power of attorney, if something happens and you're incapacitated and not able to make those decisions, the court will appoint somebody for you. So this gives you, again, control and the ability to assign someone that you trust and that knows what your desires, what your wishes are, and that they'll act accordingly.
Yeah, and these are easy documents
Yeah.
to to get into your portfolio, and so the process of completing this is not very difficult.
Right.
So,
Right.
Cherie, let's move on to what are some of the mistakes that you see women making whenever they're thinking about their legacy,
Mhm.
or maybe not thinking about it enough.
Right, absolutely. So, first of all, is not having a plan at all, not having that will, that trust, or a financial plan in place. So, not having those things kind of leaves you in a legal limbo. And so,
Mhm.
you want to ensure that you have those documents made up, but also a financial plan. In working with an advisor to develop a financial plan, you're able to look at what are the assets going to look like after potentially the passing of my spouse. And you're able to really establish and define what will I have to continue to live on at that point. And so it's really important in that planning process that women play an active role. Don't let your husband meet with the advisor and make all the plans and tell you, don't worry, everything's in place. You absolutely should be an active part of that process in understanding it, but also in establishing what are the goals and where's the income and how am I going to live after
So,
that time?
Sri, anyone who's been in financial advice and financial planning for any period of time has come across a surviving spouse who doesn't know what they have, where they
Right.
have it, and and man, they're just starting from scratch. And
Mhm.
several years ago, my wife and I were in this situation. I work in financial services and would always handle all of that. And this was my wife's idea, but what we agreed is for a couple of years, she became what we called our family CFO. And
Nice.
she handled all of our finances for a couple of years. And it really, helped her understand what we have, where we have it, why we have it, why we made some of the decisions that we made. And although she's passed that torch back to me, which I wish she would have kept it, she's passed it
Right.
back to me. She still continues to stay very involved in all of the decisions,
Mhm.
and so I'm pretty certain when I pass, my wife is going to have a good handle of what's there. Plus,
Right.
we have Client First Capital handling our assets, so we have some really good financial planning behind us.
Yeah.
But yeah, we see this happen too often, and
Right.
and so it's very good to get involved in those decisions
Yeah.
as soon as you can.
Yeah, I think that's excellent, Carrie. And one thing to remember is that even though she's not doing it currently today, the fact that she has done it and knows that she can means that,
Mhm.
that's less likely to create overwhelm for her, at a point in time at which there's so much else that she's dealing with as well. But she knows that things are in place. She knows what and where they are. And she also knows that she has the ability to handle it, which will give her much peace of mind.
Okay. Mm.
So another issue is when people don't update their beneficiaries. So in addition to having a will or a trust, there are a number of accounts out there that are passed by what we call by rule of law, which means you have a beneficiary named to a specific account. And once you pass, it will go directly to those individuals or that person. Um, for this reason, it's extremely important to keep those updated and current. You certainly wouldn't want to go through a divorce and then have your ex continue to remain beneficiary unless that's your intentional intent, but you want to ensure that you go back, and if those beneficiaries need to be designated to someone else, to children or some other family members perhaps, you want to ensure that you go and get those changes made and updated. There could also be things like perhaps you have a new grandchild, and so you want to ensure that that's the assets are going to be evenly distributed amongst all of your family members.
Right.
Another thing of regarding beneficiaries is ensuring that you have contingent beneficiaries named. This is especially important in the event if you have just a single beneficiary named. It's possible for that individual to pass first, or sometimes if that's your spouse, things can happen to where you could potentially pass together. So for that reason, it's very important to have contingent beneficiaries named on those accounts as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So one other issue, and probably the primary issue for women, is not looking at or not planning for long-term care. As we've alluded to many times, women tend to live the longest. So they live longer and they tend to have less care available to them family-wise. So for this reason, ensuring that you have planned and made accommodations for some type of ability to have long-term care is so vitally important.
Yeah, I could not agree more.
Yeah. And lastly is assuming that your spouse is just going to handle everything. Again, we've alluded to this. It's so important for you to know what things are, where things are, and be part of that financial planning process. Be part of the goal setting and ensure that what's planned for and what will be there at the end.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
Lastly, I would just say in the event that your spouse does pass before you, it's very important to ensure that you have the ability to communicate with that advisor, that you feel that you have trust and you feel supported and understood. Oftentimes, when a male spouse passes, the remaining wife doesn't always feel that same connection with that financial advisor.
Mhm.
So being that now you are the responsible party, it is so important to ensure that you have that connection, that you feel trust and support with that advisor. And so if that relationship's not working for you, then you need to find one that does.
Yeah. A couple of points I want to make here real
Mhm.
quick. One
Mhm.
is, um, we love to meet with our clients with both spouses whenever we have our client
Absolutely.
meetings, right?
Yep. Yep.
And that allows us to get a fuller family view. And sometimes if you just hear from one spouse, sometimes the wishes and desires of the other are slightly different, and
Right.
it's just good for us to know all of that as we go through.
Yep.
One may be more concerned about leaving some for the kids, and the other may be less concerned. One may be
Right.
more charitably inclined, and then the other may be less. And
Right.
so it's just we get a fuller picture when we have both on the line at the same time. And right to your point, right, they're both going to be well informed and both have that relationship. Doesn't mean the relationship will work, personality wise for everyone, but at least that baseline will be established, and I think that that's really important.
Definitely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Cheri, this was a good topic, and
Yeah.
yeah, so I appreciate you bringing this topic to the table for us. As I mentioned earlier, Cheri and I are both with Client First Capital. You can find us at clientfirstcap.com.
Mhm.
And if you like this video, give us a like so that other people can find this video as well. You can also find videos like this and other topics on our website. Again, clientfirstcap.com. You can also sign up for our newsletter. It's a monthly
Mhm.
newsletter. Or if you'd like to speak to one of us, just give us a call or reach out to us and we can schedule a time to meet. Thanks for
Absolutely.
watching. Thanks, Cheri.
All right. Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. See you.